California?
State of California.
Well, there's also the federal
Oh,
is
Yeah,
October.
he's the federal.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
October. Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm working with Caltrans, so I have to go through Caltrans federal as well.
Yeah, that's what he said.
What month is it?
Yeah, I can't remember what the state is.
I think it might be
think
like
they're-
3 months ahead of the first.
I think so.
So
Yeah.
they can get their
Yeah.
It's lined up.
requests.
Correct.
Or
Correct.
or whatever.
So we're gonna give a few more minutes, but you guys can, I mean, this is like more of an informal.
I'm sure it'd be
This
this time.
Yeah, this time, then once we start the official meeting.
Good, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing the budgeting
Budget
video.
101.
Yeah, that was super
Yes.
helpful.
Yeah, so we, if you have questions on that, but that helps at least set the stage. We did that last year for the committee. And we found it was really helpful since the main thrust of this committee is really reviewing and making sure that we're spending the money the way we're supposed to based on the ballot initiative. So it's checks and balances. And then also it's an opportunity. I mean, we try and, as I said in our initial meetings, that's the driving force. But we also
Right.
try and make it so it's not just financials. So you understand a little bit of the behind the scenes or what we're spending right now.
Yeah.
But not, as Ron knows, not strong opinions about whether or not that's how it should be spent.
I should hear you, sorry.
I said your strong opinions about rain barrels, not that, no.
So we can have strong
I don't
opinions,
think
but
that,
keep
I
it
don't
to
think that's
yourself.
part of the charter.
Yeah, strong opinions, this isn't gonna directly impact the budget.
I don't think windmills are part of the charter, are they?
No, windmills are not even.
I mean, for years, I thought, you know, because we were talking about everything that's going on inside Storm with the city. And we're, you know, kind of reviewing that, and then I found out, no, it's only,
Financials.
yeah, and then because we have an annual audit.
Yep.
By professional auditors.
Yep.
What we can say really is we assume the audit was done professionally and correctly. Thank you.
Great.
And that's it. The rest of it's information, we'll have a good time.
Which is nice, because the good thing about having the committee is that we have commissioners that are educated about what's going on in stormwater. And then can communicate to the neighborhoods what's happening and also reassure the constituents in Palo Alto that their ballot initiative money is being well spent. And that you guys are helping make sure that it's being spent the way it was authorized. So that's really what it's all.
I think it also gives you context on what we're using the money for.
Yeah.
Well, in terms of auditing, we are not qualified nor really interested in getting into details. Like, should that truck have cost X instead of
Well, some
Y?
of us are.
But we're trying, well, that's, okay, great.
I have advanced degrees in this stuff and taught at the University of Washington. So and ran a consulting firm for years. So I'm a little bit understanding.
Okay, but still, our task is to see if there's anything that just doesn't seem right. That in terms of the bond focus that we're going off, and ask those questions for
Yeah.
justification if we find it.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think each one of us will make an attempt to also identify things that we feel like, I know for myself, CIP related, I'll make an effort to identify, this is the CIP, here's the rehab. Here are the projects that we have to maintain. Here are the things that we said with the 13 projects that we said we're going to build. So oftentimes I go back and forth, and there's also some things that my group will work on for other reasons that we'll talk about, for example, Newell, that we work on, and there'll be questions raised, but that's not part of the ballot measure. So I know people are interested in knowing it, but that's not a ballot measure.
But you also have access to staff
Yeah.
to answer questions, because
We're
we
here.
wear lots of hats.
Yeah.
In this group, so we're not just overseeing.
Yeah, as you can tell by the surface
Yeah.
flow and
Yeah.
structures and all that, but that's not what we're doing. I'm just, you guys are
Right,
expert or have
Right. Yes.
information.
yes. So I'm gonna wait a little bit longer for Hal to come, our committee chair.
It's
So,
got a minute or two.
exactly, so I just like to, and hopefully he You have a quorum, but I'd like to have him here.
Which,
And he usually does come. He just is a little slower.
sure, actually.
I'm curious about the impact of the spill from Tesla, the chemical spill. Does that have any impact on? Because, it was going to go into the stormwater, so, and there was a lot of cleanup.
So Tesla paid, so the spill is handled through the city manager's office and our fire took point on that. Of course, we have supported that, but it's through the city manager's office and fire department. And then we will, my team, because it's not just stormwater, it's also
Right.
pre-treatment. We'll be doing other work with Tesla in terms of, determining lines and other things that we're doing. So, and they will be receiving fines and things, but it's not discussed here.
Okay.
More specifically for Enrica's question, was any of that waste material in the stormwater infrastructure? Did it flow into
Yes,
a drain? Okay.
yes, they
That's
had
the reason.
they had a drain inappropriately not marked in Tesla that they thought was a floor drain. And it was connected somehow, because these are all these old campuses and work is done unless they're dye tested and every drain is checked. And
And now you're dye testing.
now we will be dye testing, so I'll give you a little bit of a tidbit of what we'll be doing in the future. So, but unfortunately, they thought they were discharging it into a sewer drain that goes to the sanitary sewer. If this coolant, which also shouldn't be discharged directly into
Yeah.
this. So that's why I'm saying it's a pre-treatment issue and a stormwater issue that's both under my team.
Hmm.
The stormwater compliance component is paid for by the ballot fee. So there's just lots of moving parts within it, but yeah, so we are supporting fire and city manager's office
Well,
at
thanks for that.
a united front on it. So
Thank you.
Does
I
that
think
help?
it does help, and I think, in general, just wanted to understand contingency measures to handle something like this, the impacts. Again, it comes to the budget. If your team is working on like this initiative, because it's an urgent issue, then is something else impacted? And then again, the fines, do they flow in some way and help mitigate or not?
So
I
I
think
can
maybe
give
the-
you, because this is an active one, but I can give you an example of what happened with VA. They had a spill into the creek, and so some of that, the revenue funds went to fire, also to storm as well. So they're other
We
teams.
might add, at one time with some of the members who are no longer here, they were trying to work with council to expand the role of this committee. And they're no longer here, those people were doing it. But I think one of the ones that just got elected was one of the ones that was working on trying to figure out how this committee could do more than just a real narrow. So it's not dead, I don't think, but it's not as active as it was at one
Well, it
time.
has to be a council motion and action to
Yeah,
try
yeah.
and change the scope of this committee.
But we had Bob and some others that
Correct.
were gone now that were real active in doing that.
Correct. Yes.
Just before we start, can I
Yeah.
ask how that spill was detected? Do we have a system for looking at unusual
So that's,
water quality?
thankfully, we have a lot of very active residents because we don't have a system where we're constantly monitoring the creek. So we actually rely on a lot of our residents to be the initial one. And in theory, whoever's spilling it should be notifying us.
Yes,
Right? That's in theory,
yeah.
like everything, but they don't necessarily always know what's going on. They have large campuses. So, but yes,
It was observation by a
Correct.
citizen. Okay.
correct. We were waiting for Hal. Maybe we just get started and then we can, cause it's 5 minutes past. He'll probably come in. How's our chair still? Hal is our chair still. And then we also, that's part of the
Change
committee is actually the vice chair and the chair today too.
Sorry, what?
We need to elect the vice chair and the chair today.
Do you want to do some introduction?
Yeah, I mean, we just do some introductions until he starts.
Should I start recording now?
Yeah, I would just.
Yeah.
So in absence of our chair, I will, I guess, start the meeting off. I just wanted to welcome our new committee members. We'll go around and do a round of introductions. We'll introduce the committee members first, and then we'll have staff. So at staff level, we can say our name. My name is Karen North. I'm the Assistant Director of Public Works overseeing Environmental Services Division. The Stormwater Compliance is under my team and my purview. And then we'll go around to the commissioners, and then we'll go with staff. So.
Oh, I'm Kevin Mayer. I'm a resident of Palo Alto for a bit over 4 decades and a homeowner in the Adobe Meadow neighborhood. I'm retired after a few decades, 30 years at U.S. Environmental Protection Agency as a environmental engineer and project manager for very large Superfund sites.
Nice to meet you, Kevin. I'm Ambika Pajuri. I'm a resident here for close to 16 years now in Palo Alto. Live in the Charleston Meadows area, and I come from tech and product background. Been at Amazon for close to a decade. Done various roles, but recently quit, and I wanted to do something more and meaningful. And this, the commission was one of the ways I wanted to get started, because I also am interested in like sustainability and things like that, which I've done and led at Amazon besides leading various products.
Hi, I'm Greg. I live in Midtown. We moved in 3 years ago, so new residents. Reformed, I guess, VC. I did 10 years in early stage investment, mostly in climate tech, back when it was still agriculture and energy before it got under big umbrella. And I lead a nonprofit that is trying to drive more money into climate research. And so, yeah, that's me.
Yes.
I have a 1-year-old.
I'm Ron O's, this is my second term here, and I live in Palo Alto, and in the midst of the tear downs. The Chinese have come in and they're buying up property, tearing it down, building monstrosities, and because of the noise regulations and all the rest of them, they can do whatever they want.
Mhm.
So I listen to it every day, and they take over the streets. Hopefully, one more year and they're out of there. But and there's the storm issues. I don't want to get into technical issues, but some of them are outrageous. Say they went down below the gravity feeds,
Mhm.
so they're going to have to pump everything into the stormwater system. So yeah. Anyway, but I've enjoyed being on this committee. I think we got Colin up there. That's an excellent person, and because of hers, I will say this committee has been a workable thing. So thank you, Colin, for being here. Really.
Well, welcome to your second term. The second or third?
That's what?
Is it your second or third term?
Second.
Okay.
I couldn't be here third, could I?
No, we like Hal's been here a long time because they didn't start the term
Okay.
until later. So that's why.
Do I get another pin?
Well, welcome.
I'm Catherine Kerman. Welcome to the new committee members. Kind of know what it's like to be in your boat because I was new last time and the only new person. So I'm into my first term, enjoying it very much. Thank you to all the staff. My background is I've been a resident of Palo Alto for a long time. Let's put it this way, my daughter's now in her early 30s and she was born here. So I worked for a long time in tech. I'm now retired. I did data management and other things of that nature. But I also, all my academic training is in environmental engineering, water resources. So actually I got my PhD at Stanford in environmental engineering. So anyway, this has been a really fun group to work with, and I look forward to more time with you all. Great. Oscar?
I'm Oscar Godinez, Maintenance Manager for Public Works Operations.
So he makes sure all the storm drain lines are maintained and clean, and he's out in the middle of the night with his crew if there's a massive storm. So kudos to Oscar.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, I'm Mike Wong, I'm the Assistant Director of Works Operations.
So he's also sometimes out in the middle of the night too. His team.
Afternoon, welcome to the members, Brad Hunt, in Watershed Protection, Associate Engineer in this Stormwater Compliance Group. Great. Good afternoon, my name is Kyle Anderson, I'm a Management Analyst with Public Works and Environmental Services.
Michelle Jeremias, Senior Engineer, Public Works Engineering Services.
Alicia Boyd, Management Analyst, Public Works Engineering.
Anna Freitas, I'm a Program Assistant with Watershed Protection. I help Karen with the logistics of this committee, in addition to helping the Stormwater Manager and Pre-Treatment Manager and Communications Manager and everyone in Watershed Protection.
You're compliant,
Stormwater Compliance.
you're in compliance.
Yes.
So if any of us have an issue, can we get your card?
I don't have
Or the phone number?
I can get it to you.
So
Oh, look at that.
well, now
Yeah.
we're just doing introductions.
That's what I'm saying.
You see how,
You.
So just as we're doing some introductions, so as you can see, the stormwater ballot supports 3 divisions within Public Works. So we've got our Public Services group, we have our engineering group, and then we also have environmental services that does the compliance. And so our environmental services team has been also helping with the budget. And so that's Kyle's a new employee, Anderson. He's recently hired, so he's been taking that on in assistance with, and I don't think we introduced you, sorry.
That's great.
You're gonna get introduced.
People online.
Yeah, and there's some people online, but Michelle is our senior management analyst for our department. You've heard, and she was the one that did the video, you guys probably saw, right?
Yes.
And then Alicia's the management analyst for engineering, so she supports Michelle, because there's a lot of moving parts, right? So we have the folks that are trying to help make sure things are being maintained and cleaned, and we're trying to oversee that. We also have the compliance team to make sure that we're meeting our stormwater requirements. And then we have the engineering team, because half of the ballot is also putting in capital work, right? And that's what Michelle's team is overseeing. So let's have you introduce yourself.
Michelle Nelson, I'm a Senior Management Analyst for the whole of the Public Works Department.
And then online, Rajiv.
I'm Rajiv Hara. I'm a project engineer at the Public Works Engineering. I work with Michelle Jeremias.
And then we have our other assistant director over engineering, Holly.
Good afternoon. I'm Holly Boyd. I'm the Assistant Director for Engineering Services.
We have 3 assistant directors within Public Works right now. This isn't typical for every meeting, but especially since we have 3 new committee members, we thought it'd be important for you to know the variety of folks that this money actually helps support. Which is why we wanted you guys to all come. And then Hal, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Al Nicholson. I'm retired from the corporate law department at Hewlett Packard, where I shuffled paper.
So I took the liberty of starting the committee because you weren't here, Hal, but
Yes,
the meeting,
no
but I was gonna let you take over. So we've done the introductions.
We've done the introductions of our
Hal,
new members as well.
how many terms have you been in? Is this your second term, third?
14th or 2nd or something.
That was a question.
but Hal has been our scribe, and he's also, put together things at the end that we then are either approve or don't approve.
Right.
So are we planning on having Hal continue that
Yeah,
role? I
well,
guess
that's
is
so
what I'd like
sorry.
to say.
Anna reminded me, we need you to call to order and start the meeting,
I'm calling the meeting to order.
because I didn't do that.
So
We need the chair to do that.
Yes, you need our chair to do that. So we've done introductions, Hal, and now we're on to item 2.
Right, and that would be the public comment opportunity for any member of the public who is here and wishes to speak. Looking around, I see none. Do we have any on Zoom? And then we have to consider the agenda. Do we have any additions or deletions or other changes for the agenda? Then we turn to the approval of minutes of the last meeting. You should have in front of you minutes of the last meeting. Has everyone had a chance to look at them? Are there questions, comments? Do we need changes?
And Anna's scrolling to them on the screen too, so if you want to see them. And just for clarification, we're now doing action minutes, so they're very short and sweet.
Any comments or needs for changes before we approve the minutes? May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second. A motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And no opposed. We turn to old business. Karen, we'll ask you to take that up.
So the I think the next one that we're trying to do, old business, we have none. So now we're on the next item. Unless there was something.
New business.
New business, so we need to elect the chair and vice chair.
Okay. So we want to share. Chair, do you want to make a nomination? Does anyone wish to nominate?
Can't think of anybody.
As soon as.
We don't know each other well.
Being shared.
And the ones that kind of,
I would ask our experienced members if they want to take a turn at being chair, and if they do, I'll nominate.
Sure, yeah, I'm interested in being there.
The floor is open, and I would like to nominate Catherine as chair.
You need a second?
Yeah.
I'll be happy to second.
All right. Are there any other people who would like to volunteer or any other further nominations?
Do we need a vice chair?
Hearing, well, first we'll declare Catherine elected by unanimous voice.
Acclamation.
Stars of the universe lining up. And now we need a vice chair. Would someone like to be a vice chair? That can be a new member.
All right, looks like Greg is,
I would like to nominate you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Is there a second?
I'm happy to second
one
it.
second.
Second and third.
Is there any discussion or are there any further nominations?
I would just like to add that most of us, skip a meeting or something, but I would assume that these two positions, people are available for every meeting. And so, that's probably the case.
I think that's a good thing to understand. Any other
I'm available.
nominations?
If you have to
Hearing none, again, the stars are aligned and you're elected. So,
Thank you.
When does this position start?
right now. I can't keep on that.
3 minutes ago.
I am here, that is true. Do I get to stand up and like take a little curtsy or something? Sure.
You get the traditional inaugural speech.
Come on, 4 hours. Well, does that conclude this item on the agenda? Barb? So
See,
we
you're
got
doing what I'm doing. Always turn to Karen.
Yeah.
Then we're okay.
Okay, can I proceed with the agenda now or?
Yes.
Yes, okay, so, I think the next item on your new business is introduction of the public works staff. That is what's there, but we already did that, so.
So we're on the, if you want, how do you mind giving her a printout packet? There's one next to you since you're now.
I'm on a different packet.
Oh, the agenda.
That's
Oh, okay, so you have an agenda.
I do.
So we're on item number 4, review fiscal year 2024 goals.
Can you new business items?
Oh, I see, I'm looking at something that's.
Page 2.
well, you're basically looking at the minutes, the last one.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That's the agenda.
All right, well, thank you. All right, so we're now on to the doing the fiscal year 2024 actual.
Yes. And our new management analyst, relatively new, who's going to pull out, Kyle will be taking this on, and Michelle will be here to
She'll
support and
be
answer.
stepping in. Yeah. So the first thing is we've got the slide. Many of you probably have already seen this, it's not new. This was included in the video that we asked you guys to watch. We wanted to just sort of remind everybody about the process and just, it's a year-round process, budget development with many different components. we're doing a lot of coordination throughout the year. I'm working with Michelle and many other people within our group to get it done. I wanted to see if you guys had any questions about budget development and how we do it here at the city.
Why is community, is public involvement or public comments? They go along that list, or how do you do that?
Yeah, definitely. So public engagement in the budget development process generally happens at the finance committee. And then prior to the finance committee budget hearings, they usually do like a budget open house. And they'll do an introduction at council. Then they'll start with the introduction at council of the budget, and then they'll have the finance committee budget hearings in April. And those are any committee meetings, members of the public are welcome to come make public comment on any item. And that's really an engagement process with the community there. Specifically on the budget.
With the community and with the elected council.
Yeah, so the finance committee is a council committee. So the finance committee is 3 elected members from the city council. So the city council members. And then that'll be the public's time to interact with the council members on the committee as well as staff to ask any questions or provide any input.
But we also make a report to the council or this committee, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
this committee, we ask to provide 2 memos to our city council. One that you have all reviewed and approved our prior year actuals, as well as in April before the finance committee budget hearings happen. We meet with you, we ask you to review our proposed budget and ask you to approve what we put in there, and then write a memo that we do send to the city council saying the Stormwater Management Oversight Committee has reviewed the proposed budget for fiscal year 2026. And there's a template that states that what you've reviewed and
that's about April.
It's in April, yeah, about April. So we'll meet with you before we meet with the full finance committee, so you guys will get to see and ask questions for what we've got in our proposed budget before it goes to the finance committee or the full council. Yeah.
So there's another public input, which we're not getting today.
Yes, this is
That's an opportunity.
It is.
But the more impactful would be at the city council level, the public input at that.
Yes, there's a lot of public input at the finance committee budget hearings, but members of the public are welcome at this oversight committee meeting.
Okay.
Also, I just want to point out, especially for the new members, because I learned this hard way, it'll take me a couple of years, is that we have oversight and we review everything. However, the city does have their own internal auditing processes.
Yes.
So it's not like you need to go over and questions, right, are appropriate, but it is already checked and audited.
Yeah, so the internal process that happens before we bring you our proposed budget, in you being the stormwater committee, before we bring you the proposed budget from staff. So you guys see it before the city council and finance committee does, but it's already been vetted up through staff levels, through our department, through our administrative services department, budget team, and the city manager's office. So we're definitely making sure that we have checked all of our boxes before we bring it to you. So we're bringing you a true final draft to review.
And then our books, what Catherine was alluding to, our books do get audited annually at the end of the fiscal year for all of our departments, including stormwater. So.
And in terms of adjustments, so there is a mid-year adjustment, there is the adoption is June to August. And if there are any changes needed, that is pretty much December to Feb. There's nothing in between.
So mid-year, the ways to augment or adjust the budget for any fund across the city, there's several touch points. The main one would be the annual budget development process that goes to the finance committee budget hearings. That's the primary way that you augment and change the budget. it's realistic that that budget, even though it's a 1-year budget, will need to be changed throughout that year. So the ways that you would change the budget during the fiscal year after it's already been adopted by council, any changes to the budget do require council approval. So mid-year is one way to garner council approval. So mid-year is between December and February. It's kind of pushed a little bit to February in recent years. But that will be a larger packet of various budget adjustments that have been compiled across the city that go to the full council, because all budget adjustments require council approval. If we need to adjust the budget outside of the mid-year process, that also still needs to be done through a council approval, and that happens with a city manager's staff report, so an individual report. So the ways to adjust your budget would be through the budget development process, through the mid-year process, or through a standalone item to city council on a Monday night. So everything, any changes to any budget go through city council.
Thank you.
Well, most critically, does our committee meet in order to
If there's a change.
give input to the mid-year review?
Yes, so we have not augmented or changed the stormwater management fund budget outside of the budget development process. If that was something that we needed to do for some reason, we would have a meeting with you all first and ask for your oversight of that. We haven't done it to date. The way the fund is structured is it's pretty structured on how fiscally. So usually it's just adding in the projects at the new budget development, adding the new capital projects. But if for some reason we wanted to adjust the budget outside of the budget development process in the fiscal year, we would meet with you and then we would meet.
And what we typically do is we have certain line items that the voters were approved. So it's not adding new budget, but it might be reallocating existing budget to within the stormwater. So that's what we typically do within this committee, and that's probably what the older committee members that have been here for a little bit longer experience. Thank you. Better terminology. The experienced committee members have seen us request budget out of different line items. So we're not requesting new money, and it's not a bigger request. So we're pretty the stormwater because it was a fee that was approved by the voters. We're pretty limited on what we can adjust and change, and adding new budget is very challenging because we have to go back to the voters.
Right. But reappropriation is possible.
Correct.
Working within the proposed budget process is possible.
Mm-hmm.
City manager staff report on a Monday night is possible.
Mm-hmm.
Mid-year adjustment is possible.
Correct.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we moving on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you guys have any questions along the way, please feel free to here.
So we are actually, this is the item we're looking at.
Yes.
right now. Okay.
Yeah.
We're not moving past to transfer.
So
Now
yeah.
we're going to actually take a look at the numbers a little bit. And as you can see, there are 4 columns, and the first column is the 23 actuals. And then the second column is the 24 adopted budget. And then the next column is the 24 actuals, and then the 25 adopted budget.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, we're not going to be going over 26 because that's going to come at a later meeting. This program is sort of broken out into these 3 buckets, and you have your revenues, you've got your expenses, which is the base program. This base program does not sunset. Even when the ballot measure ends, this will continue.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got the capital projects, but the capital projects also include the green municipal infrastructure, which that's the way it's listed, but you'll actually hear us refer to it as GSI. And so essentially they're the same thing. Just wanted to point that out. So on the when you're looking at the numbers, the one item that I did want to highlight in the revenues, a couple of things was we earned a little bit more interest, which is good. The other thing too is because so the money comes in, we put it in our account, and then we earn interest on that money until we spend it. So the other piece of it is the storm drain development review fees. There's, you can see that we've only, taken in, well, this worksheet says, $10,000. But, I checked in with the inspector and we've actually billed 78. So, that, I just wanted to make sure we had that item,
Small question.
Sure.
On the interest earnings, who's the account with?
well, the account is with the city.
Right.
So the money comes into the city treasury and then each, it's broken out into a fund and each fund earns a portion of interest based on how much. was
So you're
put in.
asking who actually manages the treasury?
A lot of it's utility bills, right?
No, there's our, and we have to probably make out back to you on this one, but we do actually have someone that manages the entire city treasury.
I'm just curious.
Even the, assistant.
Administrative
It's
Services
services,
Division, we have a treasury manager, his name is Taryn Ryan.
Got it.
And so he does manage the treasury for the entire city, all funds.
Cool. Big job.
He's an employee rather than a contractor.
He's a full-time
contracts.
city employee, yes,
Mhm.
yeah, he's been with the city for
Was that?
a very long
that's
time, I wanna say
a
20 years,
question.
yeah.
Thank
So-
you.
Yeah, so what you can see from the revenues is we, because we increased in interest and we've actually compared to 23, we've gained a little bit in revenue. So which is a positive thing. Now, if you look at the base program and you can see we're pretty much.
Excuse me,
ahead.
the other revenue, it just seems curious to me.
Yeah, so the other revenue has to do with our innovative projects. And what happens is we have a contract with Valley Water. And when that program is utilized, Valley Water gives us money. And then we deposit it into our account and then we use that money to give a rebate to. So what happens is that innovative projects is not being utilized, so that revenue isn't coming in.
But you followed it on for the next fiscal year.
Yeah, in hopes
of.
that folks are going to use that portion of the program.
Very clear, thank you.
So if you look at the base expenses, you can see that they're pretty much on target with what we budgeted. The one item that I did want to highlight is actually under the administrative support costs. You can see that there is an increase, and I believe that that's an increase just related to staffing costs. Staffing costs are going up. There's also a component of that that's tied with the union. A lot of our staff are in union and they negotiate a contract. And so that's why that number is slightly up, but it's still mostly on target. It's not by increased by too much. So now we're going to move down to the capital improvement projects, and this is where you're going to see some items that you may have some questions on. But under the storm drain system repairs, you can see here that we spent about $490,000, which is, when you compare it to the budget, you're going to see a pretty big difference there. So these, we use this, we're going to go over it in more detail later in the slide, but these are the main bucket that we use for the 13 projects that the ballot measure funds. There's a couple of things that are happening. There's been some delays on the project. There's also been some staffing. We've had lower staffing, and so the bandwidth in order to actually complete these projects is less. So we haven't been able to do it as quickly. The other item with this is that there are some rehab projects that we are doing to existing projects that we've already put in place. And so staff are spending time to do those rehab projects, which is why this amount is slightly less.
So they would end up, the plan is that all of that has not been done this year, will happen next year.
Yes.
And is there a catch-up plan of any kind that is incorporated, or it just gets delayed?
Take that?
I can take that, or we can delay that question till we get to the CIP portion.
Okay.
So if the delay was to do rehab, does that does that rehab increase show up somewhere?
Yeah, so that's a good point. I forgot to mention that this is sort of a rolled up version of the budget.
Okay.
It's just to sort of give you a big overview.
Yes, thank you.
Rather than getting into all the details. But what happens is through reappropriations and carry forwards, the money that we didn't spend moves on to the next year. And we can, so that's also another reason why this hasn't, because one of the strategies that we have is to take, we continue to collect this money and we save some of it and then we reappropriate it to use on bigger projects. So maybe, as we get into the other slides, we'll go into that a little bit more, but some of this is, along with the other items, it's savings and we're planning to use it in future years.
The capital budget rolls into the O&M down the road too, right? I mean, if you build something, then you gotta maintain it and it amortizes. So it kind of goes all the way through the system. If you build something.
Yes, I believe so. Yes.
Depending on what it is. So for example, a pump station, you're right, there's O&M on pump stations. Our pipelines, it's maintenance, which, can we budget with the current amount that we've allocated? Since we're replacing a pipe, it's the same pipe, it's just a different, newer pipe. So O&M varies depending on what it is.
So then, when you look at the next one, you see this item that's debt service. So it's my understanding when this ballot measure was voted on and passed in 2017. Prior to that, we took on debt and for this fund, and we have been continuing to pay that debt even after the ballot measure. And as you can see, we've actually paid off that debt, and that's why in the adopted 25, there's no budget for that because we're paid it off. So that's actually a positive thing on this. So
that was just so people know, we had an original stormwater fee and that was sunsetting. And so and how a part of the committee, developing the next fees proposed. And so the debt service was built into that. If it hadn't gotten approved, then we were gonna have to figure out how we were gonna pay this debt within general services fund. So.
Okay.
But we paid it off. So. So this capital program engineering support, that's actually we have staff dedicated to engineering support, and that increase you can see went from 155 to 190. We believe that that's just a staffing increase cost. It's not too significant in that area.
Part of this ballot measure added an engineering FTE, and that's what that line item represents. And salary cost increase year-over-year for salary and benefit increases.
We do our best to try to adjust for that in the budget, but sometimes it just doesn't match completely, but it's not too far off. So the two other items are the Green Municipal Infrastructure, or GSI. You can see here we're allocated 380,000 and we've spent about 113,000 for that. So these are there are various assets that you see to help manage storm drain or storm runoff. And it's like a nature-based system. Brad's going to go more into that and talk about it. There's a couple of reasons why we haven't been spending in that area. There's some staffing reasons, and we're saving some of that money for another project, and that's Brad will go over that.
So the flood that we have, what's that, last year or year before, whatever, that rolled into this thing as well, did it? I mean, did you had to help pay for some of the stuff that happened during the flood, right?
Mike?
For Michelle.
Yes, so we had emergency funds that we used out of our general fund in Mike Long's public services group, to pay for.
It didn't roll into this. Okay.
We didn't have any capacity in the stormwater management fund.
Okay.
While Kyle is talking about the GSI, Green Stormwater, Green Municipal Infrastructure, I did want to take a second to pull back up to the other revenue. So a large chunk of that other revenue, the 1.216 million, that is primarily a grant that we have from the Environmental Protection Agency
Mhm.
for green stormwater infrastructure.
US or California,
I'm sorry,
the US.
US,
Yes.
EPA, right? Yes, Environmental Protection Agency. I think it's US, federal.
It's the federal
Yeah.
EPA Region 9.
Directly from Region 9.
Correct.
And
Not
the-
through California. Okay.
And the reason you see it, in the 24 adopted and the 25 adopted is, that's a reimbursement-based grant. So we had that revenue budget in 24, we reappropriated, so we reappropriate revenues in the same manner that we do expenses.
Mhm.
So we reappropriated the revenues from that grant because we did not, receive them in 2024 as expected because they're reimbursement based.
Yeah.
So that's
Good
where it ties
explanation.
on.
Thank you.
Just,
What happens if you delay it for like, so you only use it and then you get it reimbursed?
That's a lot.
Is there a period by which you're expected to use this grant?
There is, we
A
have 5,
deadline?
it's 5 years, if I remember correctly. And then we can get it extended. Thankfully, we have a good relationship with EPA, so we are able to extend it. But we are currently crafting to do a larger scale green stormwater infrastructure project, and that's why it's taken a little bit. So what we realized is these smaller ones that you might see along streets, you know, a little green stormwater infrastructure, well, that takes a lot of time. It's a lot to put them in, but then it's also a lot of maintenance. So if we can get a larger watershed area or storm area that's treated, so we're looking at parks.
Mhm.
And so we've been, you know, part of it is also just trying to figure out who's gonna handle all the different components of it, but that's something that Brad's team's working on to try and come up with a preliminary scope and then get a contractor on board and things like that. And then we'll look at a larger watershed to treat more acreage for green stormwater infrastructure. And that seems to be the biggest bang for your buck, because then also the maintenance costs are built into the park maintenance cost too. Yeah, Mike.
so just to answer Ron's question a little further, the city is seeking reimbursement and financial assistance from FEMA for the flood response from 2 years ago, and part of our response is included in that.
So, and then if anybody that was in the stormwater system was paid for out of emergency funds, essentially, because I remember people were working 24 hours on that damn thing, and so it was a spendy deal, you know, so that all came out of emergency budget.
That came off initially out of our own budget.
Yeah, but
General.
When you're,
General fund.
yeah, when you're responding, that's the least thing I do, right?
But this-
You're tending to the emergency first, and, you know, we're just charging our normal general fund.
But we were asked to go back and identify staff time that was spent on that flood, and they being our administrative services department did request reimbursement from FEMA for our staff time as well. We went through a pretty detailed exercise, all of our divisions, to identify which staff, how much time, and compiled some time card reports to submit to FEMA for reimbursement for that as well.
Not just labor, but material and debris hauling, everything included.
Which means that we didn't have to use funds from this budget to cover those.
They almost had to
floods.
put an accountant on the damn thing to track everything, right? I mean.
They did,
Yeah.
yeah. They
It's a lot of work to
repurposed
apply
some
for
accountants.
Has FEMA come through yet with the reimbursement?
It's not, I think a little bit, but we're still waiting.
Oh,
Yeah.
Big answers.
But those of us who lived here and knew what was involved, I guess we should say thank you to all the guys that worked his butts off. I mean, it depended on where it happened. But that little bridge became an orifice, you know, in the backup and all that mess in there. Yeah.
Well, you're gonna see a little bit later on, we're gonna talk, Mike and Oscar are gonna do a presentation talking about kind of some of the stuff that they work on, so. Let's try and
So we
get
have-
through the budget.
We have one more item to look at, which is the innovative projects, and that is actually a rebate program where the residents can apply for it, and they can get a rebate for like rain barrels and various other things related to stormwater. That program isn't being utilized, which is why the spending for that is less. And so we are reappropriating and carrying forward that budget that we're not using. And so it actually will lead into another part of the presentation that we're gonna go over with those two items, the GSI and the innovative projects. So even though we haven't been spending, we do have a plan, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit.
I'll hold my questions.
We're not talking about GSI and innovative projects today. We're doing trash.
Well, yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
In that
But
case, if you're not, can you give me an example of the, if the innovative program projects is all about trying to get people to use this and get reimbursement, I guess. Is it because people don't know about it or something else?
So we've done a lot of education and outreach on it. We've had workshops on it. We've done, we do have, they're not actually here, but we have other staff that do outreach specifically on stormwater. I think a lot of it has to do with just timing.
Yeah.
Putting in projects, knowing about it, do they really want to take it, the time. So we've seen some uptick, and we did a huge rain barrel giveaway a few years ago, and that did get a lot of residents participating at that time. And we're constantly trying to see other ways, but I mean, it's no different than any other thing, any other program the city's trying to push within. It's hard to get residents' attention because we're all working and have other things going on. So, but that's where the more information that you guys know about those programs and you talk to your neighbors. No, you guys are an ambassador for the stormwater. That's kind of how I view you.
I think the rain barrel, I think most of the actuals and the innovative are for rain barrel rebates. Those are pretty popular, but those are also rather inexpensive. So they're not taking a big chunk of that budget. There's a lot of other rebates for like
Permeable pavements,
different features, and those are permeable. And those are heftier rebates, but they're also heftier endeavors on the residents, and we don't just see as much popularity. And maybe that you have a hired outside outreach too for that program, right? So definitely not for lack of staff trying to get it out there, but.
Is there a list of things where the rebates are?
Yes, we can send you.
Yeah, let's send you, there's a whole website too, on our website, yeah.
It's on our website.
Since we remodeled, I might be eligible and would love to take advantage.
A rain garden, sorts of
Oh, I may have already done these.
That's what happens. I think some of the stuff that residents come in, apply for a building permit, they're so focused on the building permit, and you're dealing with a contractor, and you're dealing with timing and all the other things, that this is just a small piece. That even though we communicate and we try to get this advertised, it may not be worth it.
Right.
For residents to go after, something that it's like, I just want to, get rid of all the contractors at this point. I just want to get done with this.
Well, it's they said we went through the process, it was 3 years, and it was during it, someone told me that when you do a full remodel like we did, it's like 25,000 choices or something like that. And so for most for the owner typically, so getting this in front of like the GC who builds in Palo Alto exclusively or whatever is like maybe. I mean, I'm friends with them. I could just be honest.
The issues with stormwater runoff goes into someplace else, right? I'm not sure where, but not here. I mean, for instance, the LA deal where they've gone to white concrete. And had huge impact on temperature.
Right.
That wouldn't be anything that would be considered by your department. Right.
No, I mean, I think there's a couple of issues. You're bringing up more about environmental impact, and we're talking about the rebates. And the rebate component, we have tried as a city, different divisions, departments, has tried to advertise, promote, try to get the word out. Sometimes we get residents. I mean, I think years ago, I would see maybe 10 applications for rain barrels, and that was it. Those 10, there's not a lot. But to your point, as far as green infrastructure and bigger measures, and that's what we're trying to go over probably later on about measures that we can implement as a city internally to do bigger, not just the rain barrel between each individual house.
Maybe we could argue 50 gallons when you spend 200 a day irrigating, but then some of these other issues are big time, and especially when we're trying to make the creeks better. I'm sorry.
No.
Me mail it and all that stuff.
I just want to do time checks. We got a few more.
Sorry.
Well, I think that was the end of the budget portion. If you guys have any more budget.
One item that we are gonna do a little bit in the later is there's gonna be a section where you guys will actually get to say that you've reviewed the budget and that you've looked at it and talk to us about it. So that'll come.
We do that later, I think.
Yeah.
Action required.
Yes.
Any other questions on the budget or the budget process before we move on?
I'm sorry about this, but the two fund reserves, those are big numbers and a few symbols, and I just wanted to know if you could give me a quick explanation.
Of course. So, the way this is structured, this ballot measure, we are collecting revenues and we have 13 large capital projects that we have to complete. We kind of have to wait for the reserves to build up to budget those large projects. So you'll see there's some years where there's a good chunk going to the reserves so that we can build up enough to budget in those capital projects. And then when you see it decrease, it's because we budgeted a project in that year. So yeah, so that's why those first few years of this ballot measure, we didn't have any of the 13 capital projects budgeted because we hadn't built up the fund reserves to be able to pay for them. So the years that you're seeing big amounts going in, you know, we're getting ready to get enough budget to put a capital project in, and when you see it reduce, it's because we budgeted one of these large projects. So you'll see a lot of those in the coming years now that we're, you know, probably few, you know, halfway-ish, third way, more likely into the ballot measure. We have the funds that we're able to start budgeting those 13 capital projects and start working on them.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
At
if you guys have any other
some
budget
point,
questions-
will that whole thing end? I mean, along with this committee.
Well, that's the goal, to finish the 13 projects in the 15 years. I will say with the last ballot measure, there was one last little Matadero project that kind of bled over into this new one. But the goal is to for Michelle's
2032,
team to finish all 13 projects.
2032.
And then we may have, before 2032, pull together a blue ribbon committee again,
Yeah.
decide if we need to change or modify the fee for any other future capital work. So keep in mind, there's a certain portion of this fee that doesn't sunset, and then there's a certain portion of the fee that does, but then there's also potentially more demands than we have resources for, especially because when we did the permit, when the initial stormwater fee got approved, we did not have the compliance for municipal regional stormwater permit 2, and those are increased demands on our time. So that's why you'll see a few budget shifts requests, but not asking for budget, but just budget shifts requests to make sure we can permit compliance. So let's move on to trash. Is that okay?
If you guys have any additional questions, I know we're on the spot on budget development, anything, please feel free to send me or Kyle an email, and we're happy to answer any questions you have.
Good job. I mean, seriously, that was, so good.
Thank you.
So now we're gonna have Brad Hunt. He's talk about trash.
Good afternoon, everyone. So today's presentation is going to be on the trash load reduction progress that we've made to date and the steps that we're taking to meet our municipal regional permit requirements by June 2025. Down to that slide here. There we go. So to give a little background on, especially for the new board members, some of you have seen this presentation before, but we would need to provide background for you. So the regional board established the requirements for the city to follow, that we must follow to protect stormwater quality under our regulatory permit, which is a municipal regional permit that was approved in 2022, is the most recent version. So in 2014, we submitted a long-term trash load reduction plan to the water board, which has 13 trash management areas throughout the city. And that's what you're seeing on the slide here. So all those numbers represent all the different 13 areas. The colors on the slide, green represents low trash load, yellow represents medium. The red, as you can see, is very little on there, represents high trash load. And then the purple, mostly Caltrans right away, means very high trash load. So we're required to treat all of those areas and make sure that we have a very low trash production in the city. So we've been a leader throughout the Bay Area in litter control. We have several actions and programs that we've implemented over the years, and I'll go over those in another slide later. But basically, we complied with all of our trash load reduction requirements and all the previous permits to date. So we've met every trash load requirement we've had to, every percentage of this. So the reductions, sorry, next slide. our trash reduction requirements in the new stormwater permit, they're based on compared to 2014 baseline. And so what we had to do was achieve 90% by June 30th of 2023, which unfortunately we did not meet that target. We were at 75%. Part of the reason for that was that we lost some credit for the ordinances that we passed. So we passed a single-use ban for bags and for EPS. We lost the credit for those. So that dropped us down below where we were. What we have to do is achieve 100% by June 30th, 2025. What we're having to do to meet that requirement is submit an updated long-term trash flow reduction plan, which we did. When we did that, that was sent back to us and said, you need to provide a little bit more detail on exactly what you're going to do in order to meet this. So what we did was we updated that plan, and one of the actions we did got us to 97%. So next slide, please. These are our ongoing trash control measures that we've implemented so far. So street sweeping happens throughout the city at various frequencies, on-land cleanups, trash container bin management. So every business has a trash container. They have to manage that in a way. We inspect that and make sure they keep it clean. Storm drain inlet cleaning, Oscar's group does that. They make sure that they're cleaning those storm drains every year, getting that trash before it gets into the creeks. We have anti-littering and illegal dumping response that we work on. And we also have public education outreach, covered load requirements. There's the ordinances I was talking about that we lost that credit for. That was about 10%, I believe, if I remember correctly. And then we also have trash bins. We get partial credit for that because it's not technically full trash capture, which is how we get a lot of our credit. So we get partial credit for those because it captures trash as it gets into the creek, but doesn't capture everything. That credit, unfortunately, is also going away at the end of this fiscal year. So June 30th, 2025, that's gone. What we also do is we do what's called trash assessments. So we have people go out throughout the city and they assess sections of the city to determine what the trash generation rate is within that area. What we're seeing when we do that is we typically are getting low or moderate trash generation through that. And so that's good because that means we're meeting a lot of requirements just by surveying and saying the city is clean. Those are point in time counts or surveys. And so those vary year by year. But what we're seeing is that overall Palo Alto is really clean and we have actions to take care of those other areas that aren't clean.
Sorry, just one quick question. Could you talk a little bit more about the ordinances that impacted us, the single-use EPS and smoke waste?
So the single-use ban, those were passed under the zero waste group. And basically what it was that all single-use trash bags or grocery bags and any type of retail bag was banned within the city. So they were not allowed to be provided to anyone to be used. And that reduced trash impacts in the creeks. EPS is the same thing. So any polystyrene packaging was banned from being sold in retail or retail stores.
Right, and what does it mean that because of that ordinance, we lost?
So the regional water board, what they decided was that those ordinance services are effective. They were a one-time thing. They reduced trash overall. So that means that credit can't be applied going into the future because there's no more trash generated from those items anymore. So we could technically pass an updated ban to ban something else, but that would also sunset at a certain point as well. So we did the good deed, got the credit for it, and now they're saying you have to do more to reduce trash from other sources.
So the ordinance are still in effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure it's clear. It's just the credit that we get for trash reduction has been removed. So now we have
the street sweeping. You have a contract with the street sweepers someplace around here. I mean, they were by my house every other week to pick up a lot of stuff. So I think it would roll into this someone.
It does.
I mean,
we get credit for it. That's
Yeah,
part of the trash reduction program. So those street sweepers are picking up trash along the curb and gutter. And so any areas that are swept within the city, that's where you're seeing on that map that I showed, where it's green, that's why it's green. Because when people come out and survey a week later, there's no trash there because it's already been cleaned up. Because you have to survey in between those instances where the street sweepers operate to see how much trash is generated during that time.
I mean, some cities I've lived in, you're not allowed to park on the street during that.
Correct.
Here we're allowed to. So I don't know if that's ever come up with before, but
we have not put in the timeframes for moving cars.
Yeah.
They do have a service to go and do blow out, in between the cars at times. That actually, the street sweeping is funded through, not through the refuse contract. It's actually not funded by the stormwater.
Okay.
Just
We just
for,
get credit for it.
but we get credit for trash reduction.
Yeah.
It's all
I mean, I
in the
think it's
city.
great, personally.
Yeah,
And you can get credit for contractor and staff picking up litter.
Yeah, that's also part of it. Yeah, that's, we get that as well.
On-lake cleanups.
Yeah,
Yeah.
online cleanups, so like downtown streets teams,
You-
things like that.
Yeah.
What about our staff? Is that included?
yes,
Yeah, anytime we get.
yes, Mike, you are part of
In an area.
this. You're part
The construction going on, and those guys are horrible. The street sweeping becomes almost more important. It's what I.
Yeah, we have a construction inspector who inspects certain sites and then they're required to have a street sweeper typically go around during the day at a certain frequency to maintain that.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't want nails on the street or anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So another way that we get a lot of credit, the majority of our credit here, well, we get 62% from all those other actions of credit towards our 100%. A big way we get it is by putting in infrastructure such as full trash capture devices. And in the city, we have 3 of those large devices. They're the large circles on the map. The most recent one is the one in the very top right corner that we just installed. We have one small full trash capture device right now, which is the very small circle in the middle of the map there. And then we also have bioretention areas around the city, which capture a little bit of trash. Say bioretention here. Oh, that's it.
Do we have some place to review the different percentages and, credit? For
There are percentages, I don't have those off the top of my head,
No.
but like I said, all 3 of those devices right there give us 33%.
Right, no,
reduction
but
throughout
I'm
the
saying
state.
all the different pieces.
we have-
Yes, we have that broken out on the spreadsheet that we have, yeah.
Some places in the system, they have bar screens and that kind of stuff, right, that you have to go in and clean, I would think.
Yeah,
Correct.
we do have them on the pump stations
Yeah, yeah.
and some creeks, we also have them right before the creek goes underneath the street on channels. We capture all the trash.
We have some photos of that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So the large devices are the pictures on the bottom left and the middle. So the most recent one we installed is that middle device, which is debris separating baffle box. And then the small trash capture device is the one on the right, which is an inlet based device. So that captures it right as it comes into the inlet. And then that's one of the ones, Oscar maintains all of these, but the most recent one is the one on the bottom right that we installed at Park.
So are these then manually cleaned up after it's
Yeah.
captured?
Yeah, he inspects those and cleans those before the storm season and inspects them during the storm season to see if they need to be cleaned based on the amount of debris and trash that flows into that. So when we had to submit our updated trash flow reduction plan that the water board asked us to do, what we had to do was come up with a plan on how we're gonna move forward to go from our current 97% where we're at, 97 to 100%. Doesn't sound like a lot, but that 3% can be kind of hard to get to. And so what we did was we looked out throughout the city to determine where can we install those smaller trash capture devices. We looked at new ways we can enhance our current measures that we're using. So all those ones, street sweeping, et cetera, to see how we could achieve that 100% benchmark and make sure we maintain our current level of service. We estimated all of our planning costs, what this was going to cost us to do all these things. And so we came up with 4 different scenarios. Next slide, please. And so here's the 4 different scenarios. A lot of them, as you can see, include 2 things that were specifically chose to do, which was install small full trash capture devices and do private property inspections or private land drainage area inspections. Going to continue to do trash assessments or install large devices. So as you can see on the top one in A, very expensive. And it's primarily because of those large devices and the large number that we were proposing to install with small devices. Went down a little bit when we decided to include the trash assessments. Went back up when we just decided to do, all small devices, which is a lot. That would be a heavy load for someone to maintain all those, and then do the private property inspection. So we decided to go with scenario D because 49 devices isn't a lot to maintain. It's less costly. Private property inspections, we can wrap those into some of our current inspection programs so that the cost goes down because we're duplicating effort there. And then going with our normal trash assessments that we're already doing throughout the city. Those numbers of trash assessments reduce because we're actually doing the private property inspections. What those private property inspections are is going out and then inspecting private properties that actually have a storm drain system connected to our system. So it's directly connected. We need to make sure that they're providing or implementing the best management practices to reduce trash on those sites so that their trash generation is at low level as well. So we inspect those. We did 40 some of those. That number actually decreased this year, but we inspected 45 of those this year and they all got A's. So that means they're low trash generating. So we got credit for that. That's how we got up from 75 to 97% reduction. So that was the big effort that we did this year to get there.
Litter barrels rolled into this somehow. I mean, I'm just thinking about university, walking down in the morning, everybody's coffee cups are going everywhere, you know, and you're almost a relationship between how frequent a trash location is versus how much litter there is.
Talking about individual trash bins on the street. I'm
yeah.
not sure about maintenance of those. Frequency.
Mike does that.
I mean, I mean, a lot of us just shoot somebody out with road, you know.
They come out later in the street.
Trash
Well,
bins and maintain what.
I think we have to keep in mind that these are trash capture devices that are in the storm drain system.
Okay.
So if somebody throws trash on the street and it ends up in the storm drain, these devices are designed to capture that trash
After it happens. So,
after it happens in order to prevent it from getting into the creek.
gotcha.
And that's if it's installed in that area, because we have key areas that we need to install them because there's no way we can get the area from a moderate to a low unless we install this device here. So University Avenue may be maintained by Downtown Streets team or another group to maintain trash cans along that stretch of road.
Okay.
And so if there is litter on the road at that time, they go to maintain the bin, they're going to pick that up as well. So that is one action that happens throughout the city on a regular frequency. So
We have contractor and staff who walk the streets to pick up litter down there and the garages.
So it's kind of a combination of both.
Yeah.
Right? You pick up the litter. If you miss anything, it gets into the storm drain. If it happens to be that we have a trash capture device, it'll capture that trash.
We have another question here.
yes,
How common is it for private properties to tie directly into the city storm drain?
Very
depends on the city.
No, I mean, for us, is
Yeah,
is
it's
61 a
about
lot?
61 that's not a lot really. No.
So they're not 120 and you're only inspecting half of them?
No.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, they did a good job inspecting to get our trash numbers up, so that they hustled
Yeah.
because we're trying to meet our compliance goals. So let's.
Yeah. Sorry, a lot of them are flow straight to the street. So that we can't do. So that's basically my presentation.
We hit this one too.
Oh, am I doing that right after? Are we rolling right into this?
Yeah,
one?
you're rolling right into the stormwater. So this is alluding to what we talked about earlier, where
Yes.
talking about how we're gonna meet compliance goals with an existing budget. And so we're trying to be strategic about how we can shift some money around.
So now we're talking about fiscal year 25 budget and
Yeah.
take it away.
So this is the overview of our stormwater program and the projects that we have within that program. So as we talked about GSI, Green Stormwater Plan Implementation, this is about multi-benefit projects. And so in 2019, we submitted what's called a Green Stormwater Infrastructure Plan to the Water Board, and that stated how we would increase GSI throughout the city. And so there's various actions that we were taking to implement that. So one action is that we created a GSI handbook, design handbook for CIP projects, so capital improvement projects that we're rolling out. We're at the very final stages of getting that done finally, and it's about to go to design, and then we can provide that to city staff to use for all our CIP projects. Another one is that we're integrating GSI into departmental work plans. We're looking at city projects to also make sure we include it in, and we're working on prioritizing GSA, especially in like the right-of-way projects, and coordinating with the other departments on that. So impervious surface calculation is another project we have under that plan implementation. So we're going to basically survey all the impervious area within the city and determine where the best areas are to implement GSI to install green stormwater infrastructure to treat those areas. Stormwater program consultant support also falls under this GSI category. And so what we need support for is to help forecast the long-term budget. So for the rest of this permit through 2027, one thing we need to do for private projects is conduct an in lieu nexus fee study because they're having trouble meeting some of the requirements. So they need to have a way that they can pay an in lieu fee so that we can use that money to install GSI in other parts of the city to treat stormwater. Under our innovative projects program, we have the Southgate Stewardship Program, which we're still, was just still ongoing. Basically, that's continued maintenance and getting volunteers to maintain GSI in that neighborhood. There's 16 bioretention areas that grassroots ecology works on with volunteers to maintain. We also talked about the rain barrel and garden workshops. So that's, promoting the rain barrel rebate program and trying to get that out to the public. The next one is stormwater rebate program. So that's providing rebates as well to residents to install rain gardens or rain barrels or pervious pavement or whatnot. The final thing in our budget is the new thing, which is the trash reduction requirement. So in order to get to that 100%, we talked about installing the 49 trash capture devices. And that's where Kyle was talking about we need to maybe reallocate some budget for that. We actually chose one city site, so it's going to be 50 now because we have a problematic parking lot that we need to, it'd be easier to put a trash capture device in there than actually go out and continuously clean it. So now it's 50 instead of 49 as I showed in the previous presentation. And so, we're going to request an immediate need for a certain amount of money. Go to the next, that Kyle's going to
Next slide.
go. Next slide.
Just so you know, the estimated cost is not for fiscal year 25, it's just that's the contracting need. It will go over multiple years. So we're just going to show you what we need for the current fiscal year 25.
I just, one comment, I think that this kind of program would be important to people. I don't know enough, I don't think a lot of people living here understand this is going on. And we need more PR or whatever on this kind of program, because it really makes a difference to those of us living in the city. So, and I don't think there's a lot of people that know, but personally.
That's why we do a lot of PR, but you guys being the ambassadors is going to help us, because boots on the ground and talking to folks, the area in Southgate has gotten a lot of publicity because the residents are involved, and that helps. And so that's where you guys can assist us with. But this is our budget needs, Kyle.
Yeah, so hopefully this will be pretty quick. As Brad said, in order to meet our permit requirement, we need to install 50 new trash capture devices. And we've identified some budget from fiscal year 25 that we'd like to use in order to install those 50 trash capture devices. So that's one of the action items that we're going to be asking the committee to take, is to look at this and go ahead and sign off on. And it kind of goes back to when we were looking at the fiscal year 24 budgets. If you remember, we identified that the GSI budget and the innovative project budget are two areas that we aren't spending as much as we we're spending less. And so we're hoping to use budget from the GSI budget category and the innovative projects to install these 50 trash capture devices. Mm-hmm. So there's a total, it's estimated to be $75,000 to install and purchase and install those items. And so in this budget worksheet, what you're going to see here is we've got 22,000 in carry forward budget, and we have the adopted of 380. So that gives us a total of 402 for GSI for fiscal year 25. We have already committed. We haven't spent it yet, but we have plans to spend $12,000. That $12,000 is just on GSI implementation and trash reduction support. Now, we also have, those are commitments, so we know we're going to spend the money on that. We are anticipating and planning on spending about $100,000 in consulting fees. And then we've already spent $10,000. So we're asking for $50,000 to use from the GSI bucket, and that'll give us a remaining budget of $230.
So each one of them, does it have a maintenance component downstream?
It does have a maintenance component. Those maintenance components aren't necessary because we're going to be purchasing and installing them this year. The maintenance will be for next year. Yes, okay. And so we're going to identify funding for that maintenance, and that'll be part of the next meeting that we do, just to talk about that. And then kind of going along the same, so if you look at the innovative projects, we've got, 23 in carry forward, 125. That gives us a total budget of 148. We're planning on, we have commitments of 23,000 for fiscal year 25 for the rebate and consulting with Valley Water, that's connected. We're planning on using 28,000 in the Southgate Neighborhood Stewardship Outreach Program. And so that's about letting them know about this program. Year to date, we've spent less than $1,000. That's what that is. And so in order to get that $75,000, we're gonna use 50,000 from the GSI bucket, and then we're gonna use 25 from the innovative projects. And so even though it's so you can see those are the items that we are using to spend right below it. Right there.
So, and then downstream, as you maintain them, you can roll back into as a ways of improving them for the maintenance, you know what I'm saying? Because it kind of go back and forth on those kind of projects. And so we're talking about innovation and all kinds of stuff. The whole program wraps together. It's a really neat program.
Yeah, so the action item would be to these two budget items to use $75,000 to install these 50 new trash capture devices in order for us to meet that permit requirement.
Are there any other questions on this action person thing? No?
How does this impact 2025 budget besides the budget? I get it, like, there's numbers, but are there any projects that it might impact by pulling this off?
No, this is, as we were alluding to earlier, we're still in the planning phase for a large GSI project. So, and we have capital allocation for a GSI project on the budget book. So this will not impact it.
This is gonna pull from the existing operating appropriation in fiscal year 25 for the GSI and innovative projects. So this will not pull from fund balance. It's gonna use existing budget appropriations in the operating. Right.
And it is one time, purchase and installation of these items. And so that's why we're going to work to identify for the maintenance at the next meeting, because that's a slightly different strategy and discussion, because that's an ongoing cost. So we do have plans for this fund in the future, but because we haven't been spending and we have a little bit of money left over, we could use it to meet that permit requirement now, and it won't affect us in the future because it's a one-time cost.
Are there any other questions? On this meeting? Do I hear a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the
second.
recommendations.
Thank you. This is now approved.
We vote. So we approve it?
I think it just got approved.
Okay.
I mean, you can't do this, everyone approve.
Oh, I have to ask. Do I have to ask that? Yeah, do I hear,
No.
do I approve, say aye?
Aye.
Thank you.
Anyone not approve, right?
What was that?
You're fine. You got all ayes, but if anyone didn't agree, you could say nay,
I see.
So we've been very fortunate with this committee that usually it's a unanimous aye, so.
Well, it's a good presentation.
And then this is the other thing, Catherine, that we have to do.
Yeah, so we need to move on to memorandum of fiscal year 2024 actual expenditures. Is that right?
Yes, so this is this letter.
Oh, yeah, the letter.
Memo that is.
I saw it, you reviewed it, last questions.
So this is something I always lose track of.
Yeah.
So last meeting or within the last couple of meetings, we also approved or rewrote or amended a memorandum.
That's for future budget years. So you'll have
For future budget years, this is for
24 actuals. So we have two memos that the committee does. One is you review actuals. And so the books just closed. We've now reviewed the actuals. We summarized them earlier today in the meeting. Then you guys have reviewed the actuals. Then when we come back for the budget review that what Michelle is alluding to, and we'll go through all of our committees before it goes to the finance committee, will come to you. It's going to be, this is where the timing for us, we're trying to find a very finite amount of time usually is challenging for us, but like to get us together as a committee after we get through all of our approvals. Then you're approving the fiscal year budget moving forward, so 26.
What we're working on now is what will be the actual memorandum to be submitted. It's not a draft. We have to revisit it. If we approve this, it's gonna go on to the council. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So we're telling the council that we reviewed what happened in 2024 and it looks legit.
Correct.
Okay.
And it feels a little late, but as Karin said, the fiscal year ends on June 30th, and it takes a couple months to close all those year-end books and all the approvals and numbers to stop moving. So we bring that to you in the fall of year, once it's solidified.
And it's been audited.
Right.
So that's why it takes a little bit of time to get to you. It's gone through the audit as well.
Well,
So about 4 months.
Okay. And now we're already starting the next year budget. So we
Well,
never get to
should
stop
be,
thinking
yeah.
about budget, right?
Budget is all year.
so this is just also a question for me for my recollections of previous. We've sometimes included a sentence or something about we recognize these numbers have been audited by the city staff. Sometimes we've had a sentence like that in this memorandum. Is that correct?
I feel like that might be, Anna, does that ring a bell? Is that
Yeah, I think this sentence or clause rather, relying upon information by staff would find that the attached. Describes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that seem good?
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding my memory too.
Yes. that's
Yeah, I
right.
just wanted to make sure it was consistent with previous memoranda, actually. So, okay, so now we have another, I think we're ready to move on. And
Do you need an action item on this? Just to approve the memo, because the one was for 25 shifting budget, this one's for 24 reviewing of action.
right, so we're gonna do the action item for this one, right?
Yes.
That's right.
For action.
So should someone
So,
move to?
I need yeah, someone can please move to approve.
Move to.
I move we approve.
Thank you, Val. And
Seconded.
Second,
Seconded.
thank you, Greg. And do we now have any, can we vote on it? Hear the ayes?
Hi.
Was there anybody who didn't say aye? No.
No.
Okay, we're all in agreement. Are we done with that action item now?
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
Cruiser.
Now we're gonna move to the next item.
Next item is number 8, staff overview of storm preparedness. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So Mike has a lot of slides because it's a lot of pictures. So
Good. Right. Okay,
it's nice for you guys to see.
so we're gonna talk about what public services does to prepare for winter. That's like. We actually prepare for winter all year long. And we should be preparing for winter before winter. That's actually when we get most of our work done. And that's why I always laugh when people say, what do you do to prepare for winter? And the thing is during winter. So this is most of our team that works on what you guys are providing oversight on. The team actually gets larger because when we need to, we pull from other crews. And we have, during the flood 2 years ago, we actually pulled from everywhere in the city. We pulled every employee from our public works team, public services team, from our public works department, from our utilities department, from the parks department, everywhere, contractors. We had an army of people out. So we have a lot of resources at our disposal. Some storm drains, facts and figures for the new people. We have 4 primary watersheds. They're listed there. Many people don't realize that storm drains are separate from sanitary sewers. The stormwater actually flows to the creeks in the San Francisco Bay without treatment. We have 107 miles of underground pipelines. We have 76 outfalls, 4,662 catch basins, and these are things that we all inspect and maintain, repair, and work on. 1,592 manholes, 9 stormwater pump stations with two new ones coming, 2 new trench drains related to traffic calming projects, and probably over 20 green stormwater infrastructure.
What is a traffic calming project? What does that mean?
Oh, those are the things that a lot of people tend to not like. Like, that, instead of going straight to a four-way intersection, you have to.
Oh, yes.
Thing
Okay.
right in the middle for you to go
You see
around.
roundabouts, but they're not really roundabouts, and
Okay,
they also have
okay,
stop
no,
signs, so they're not
They're
really.
supposed to be traffic calming. I don't know if they're stress calming.
Sometimes you
I
see
know
them
what you mean. I know.
at the intersection, not just the intersection, but you see at the ramps.
Yeah,
But the cross
I know.
ramps where they bulb
Bulb
out.
out.
Yeah, there's a bulb out.
Yeah.
That too.
Okay,
All right, next slide, you got it already? Okay, so, here's some of the general work that we've already completed, for the year. All the creeks and outfalls have already been inspected and cleaned. The pipelines and catch basins have been cleaned, inspected and repaired as well. Our tide gate has been cleaned and inspected. GSI has been looked at and inspected, and the flap gates and outfalls again. Important for us to not just inspect the flap gates, but exercise them to make sure they're working and repair them as necessary.
So how
There's
many again were the pump stations?
nine,
Nine.
with, yeah,
And two more
that's
coming.
plenty, and two more coming, right?
Are these all manually inspected or are there some cameras or other tech used?
Manual.
Any plans to automate some of these, as in put cameras to maybe even inside the drains to get some data?
That's fine.
That would be, those are some of
The logistics of trying to put in infrastructure, we have some infrastructure to do creek monitoring and things like that, but to try and put in permanent infrastructure to monitor how the storm drains are functioning, we do it within the sewage treatment plant, and we have 24/7 operations. A lot for maintaining it, running lines, there's always troubleshooting, so right now, usually it's because it's seasonal. His team typically just goes out and inspects, and usually they know the hotspot areas, and the 2 pump stations that Michelle's working on that will be put in will also help with those where the flooding happens. So we have a good sense of where we have issues and where with the city.
With the construction going on, big buildings and all that stuff, and then all of a sudden, they have their own pump stations inside the building, and that's what I'm seeing. And they need to maintain them, which they don't do, and it's so, all of a sudden, your system keeps getting more complex, right? I mean, it's.
That's private.
Yeah.
Ron, that's private. Anything in private development, private property, it's privately maintained by whoever, whether it be a resident or whether it be a campus. It's not something that we
It
would
still
maintain.
flows into your system.
It does, but some elements of it, what we have is barriers and separations between what can and cannot flow into our system. So in ideal situation, we would have catch basins at the street that keep our flows within capturous rain flows. And then we try to separate any private development independent, outside of that.
Okay. Here's some actual performance numbers for the year. We've actually hydro flushed, 175,000 linear feet of, storm drain line and laterals. We've inspected close to 4,000 catch basins, and there's an asterisk there because we don't just inspect and clean them one time, we go back and do it again. Sometimes 2 to 3 times. As winter approaches, we'll go back and do it again. There's a number of, outfalls and flap gates that we've inspected in exercise 76. And we spent about 1,500 hours of maintenance on our pump stations. And we probably pulled out around 100 tons of debris just from our trash racks at the creeks, pump stations, and in the catch basins.
That's an approximation, or how do you measure that? Just truckload?
Yeah, we'll measure by truckloads.
We have to pay for it, so.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
there's an accounting.
Thank you.
It's an exact number.
Next
Next slide, please. And as winter approaches, like I said, we're gonna continue our work in inspecting and cleaning the same catch basins, focusing more on the rural roads up Upper Page Mill. Keep cleaning and inspecting the trash racks. As you know, November 15th is approaching, so that's when we set out our sandbag station. So just received our delivery of sandbags and filled sandbags and sand. We do it all. And then we'll be maintaining those sandbag stations, and then we also, believe it or not, prepare staff and equipment for snow plow and sanding because it does snow. Upper page mill like we did last year, right? A lot of stuff. Next slide. So just want to share with you some pictures of some of the work that has been going on in the streets. At Alistair and Dana, we actually installed Oscar's crew in-house. Oh, one more, sorry. Here. Just the next one. Yeah, Oscar's crew actually installed a new storm drain catch basin and at the recommendation of Public Works Engineering to help alleviate some of the local flooding that happened on the corner 2 years ago in that flooding. Over at Palo Alto Avenue in Seneca, the 2022 flood actually sheared off the flap gate and damaged 10 feet of pipeline there. So we actually had to demo the damaged pipeline and install a new pipeline and new flap gate there. And after that was all done, we had to restore the vegetation on the hillside with soil and native vegetation. Next slide, please. Yeah. Okay, this slide shows some of the culvert repairs that we've done on Upper Page Mill Road. You recognize what this location is?
Underpass.
El Camino underpass. Remember when it flooded and we had to close it down with all the mud and debris? Yeah, well, that's actually not our jurisdiction, but you know, to keep Palo Alto moving, we had to step in.
It's on a little aside, I'll be real quick, but you know, it used to be 20-year design life, you know, or you use a 20-year storm and all that to design runoff. We're starting to see 100-year storms.
Yeah, right.
I just wonder if that criteria has changed any effect is, you're still dealing with a 20-year storm and it always is bigger than that.
Right.
Just out of curiosity.
So what's the question?
And when there's our
Is it
design, that's
design,
for Michelle.
you know, or, you know, 20-year storm or 50-year storm, but we started to change that criteria. That's what I'm asking.
No, we have not changed the criteria. And the
Okay.
criteria has been the 10-year storm.
You're at a 10-year
So
storm.
we're at a 10-year storm. And so we're trying to just to even the 13 CAPs, it's just to meet the 10-year storm.
We should have it every year.
But we're trying to provide some level of redundancy. So, and you'll see in another slide.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this picture just shows how much debris collects in some areas of the creeks. This particular area was very difficult to get to because you see the low hanging utility lines above. So we didn't actually have the equipment to be able, and we couldn't even rent the equipment to be able to reach that and pull it out. So we actually had to request assistance from Valley Water. They have a very specialized truck specifically designed to be able to do that. So you know, we do rely on our partner agencies to help us. They're tremendous help that year.
I remember looking at this thing.
Yeah. So, you know, with 9 pump stations, there's a lot to control and monitor at the creeks and the pump stations itself. I mean, this is the best we're going to get in terms of, you know, cameras and automation. And so this is the limits of what we do have. We do have a lot of creek sensors.
This work.
To monitor our pump status. Check for erratic readings from sensors. It will alarm us. It gives us the wet well water levels. So that's the best automation we have now.
Also, I just want to, I know Franklin committee members are aware, this is available on the city website.
Yeah.
You all know.
This is actually, the one on the right is actually from the city website. Next slide, please. And just this past year, we actually made some improvements at Pope Chaucer Bridge by installing a new high resolution pan tilt zoom video camera to be able to monitor the bridge, you know, the activity at the bridge there, you know, water levels, how much debris is coming down the creek. We actually added new emergency lighting so we could actually see the debris flow coming toward the bridge, because when we need to pick out debris from the bridge, it's you actually have to time, you know, the person operating the excavator, he has to be able to time and see the debris floating down to be able to pick it up. Okay, so it was funny because 2 years ago when it was happening, you know, all the communities members were out there watching. It was like watching a little kid play a video game. There's also, we actually, the picture on the, next slide, well, no, sorry, two previous, one more back. Thank you. The one on the far right is actually the sensor over the bridge that measures the water level, but there's also a light there that we put there so we could light up the height scale, the vertical height scale that measures the water level that you see. We actually had to add another one. The vertical height scale that was there before was actually on the Palo Alto side, which the Menlo Park side could read. Okay? But when we put the camera in, they wouldn't allow us to put the camera on the Menlo Park side, so we had to put it on the Palo Alto side, which means I had to put another scale on the opposite side of the camera. Okay? So,
System of mirrors.
and we actually, we knew how critical people would be, so we actually had to, when we put the other height scale, we made sure we lined it up with the other one. So, if it was an inch off, we would hear about it. So,
Thank you.
yeah. All right, next slide. She's okay, okay, so that this one here, this shows the two vertical high scales. Yeah, you can see how well the camera and the lights work at night. That's a night shot there, and we can actually move the camera if we need to look upstream to see what's going on there, or close up here. And this is kind of the what you see on the Creek Monitor page of the city is kind of, that's what the city manager was. So
And before you leave the slide, I wanted to go back to Amika's comment about making something automated.
Mhm.
So in something that Mike had said, I think we have a great relationship with Menlo Park. It's not that they wouldn't necessarily let us put in the camera on their side, but the thing is, to your question, is the dark fiber that serves stormwater, it's separate than the rest of the fiber that serves the rest of the community. And the dark fiber is connected to on this side of the creek. So what we had to do, extend the fiber to this area in order to be able to get that feedback.
Right.
And we had to keep it on the Palo Alto side because that way we control it, we monitor it.
Right.
We don't prevent East Palo Alto or Menlo Park in this situation from doing anything else.
Yeah, we pulled the power from our side too, so it's more convenient to put it on our side.
Right.
Okay, the next few pictures are just a few photos of our pump stations, the work going on there. Slide here, and you're talking about cleaning up all the leaves and sediment and trash.
Where is
pump
this?
station.
Where's this pump station?
Inside of what?
San Francisco Creek Pump Station, it's on East Bay Shore,
Okay,
borderline with East Palo Alto.
I'm just curious.
So these are confined spaces, so we have to do confined space training and proper setup. Next slide. Yeah.
If you guys want to visit that site, let me know.
Field trip.
Sure.
I will let you know.
Yeah, there's a few pump stations that Oscar could go around and show you, and they even a trash capture, so if you want to see the sides of it,
Yeah.
then what we have to do.
Yeah, sure.
Someone asked earlier to clean manually. Yes, here.
Yeah.
But you have to sign something and say if you fall in, it's your fault, right?
It is cleaned manually, but we do have some specialized heavy equipment to help us, and you can see that big metal pipe there, with the pipe extensions on there. That's actually a big vacuum, very powerful. It can suck up rocks, it can suck up humans. That's why.
Yeah, so you gotta be careful about
Mike,
Well, it's
show your weight.
dangerous. Is what I'm
Yeah,
You have to be very careful. And this
He prevented me from asking a question.
this tool is very valuable to us. Next slide. So some more pictures of trash racks and inspections and cleaning. This is some of the manual work at the creeks. We have 10 other creeks and 4 channels where there's trash racks in addition to those 9 pump stations. Next slide. This is Matadero Creek.
Hey.
Next slide, and this is just to tell you how valuable the equipment is that we need. This is that Vector truck that I talked about, that very powerful vacuum. But it also has a hydro flusher on it, so we can actually clear lines if there's a blockage in there. So we do own this. Oh, sorry. The one that says Vector truck.
No.
Okay. Somebody changed the spelling on my slide. Anyway, Anyway, so that's the Vector truck. We own that. That's a very useful tool.
Right.
What we have found, sorry, let's, next slide. One thing that we have found useful, since the 2022 flood is renting an excavator and leaving it parked at the Pope Chaucer Bridge, so we could respond faster. We do have a small excavator ourselves, but it's too small, it doesn't have enough reach to get, reach down to as far as we want to go. So we actually rent one and we stage it at Pope Chaucer bridge. We usually get it around November. Should be coming soon, and it saves us a lot of response time because we just park it there. These are specialized excavators that a lot of people don't have, because if you look very closely at the picture, there's actually what they call a thumb at the bottom of it, so you can actually grab these things here. Okay, otherwise you're just trying to scoop it, right, which is hard. So this will be parked out there 24/7 during the winter months, and yeah. Next slide. And this is something that we started using, I think, a year ago, and finding it very useful. It's also a vacuum truck, but it's a smaller unit on a trailer, so it gives us more flexibility and portability, and this gives us extra capacity to do more cleaning and do it faster. This actually allows us to also get into more smaller areas like parking garages.
And you can respond fast. with it,
Yeah.
too.
So, this is something that is costing us $5,000 a month to rent. And we've, Oscar has found that it's making his operation so efficient that we're actually proposing to actually buy one. Okay.
That's just like a sump pump.
It's just, yeah, it's just, well, it's like that big vacuum.
Right.
Yeah,
That clears up some.
but smaller, on a trailer. So instead of having one crew operate that Vector truck, he can set out another crew with this one. They can get to, that big truck is hard to maneuver around tight streets and things, and, so the other thing that we rent, seasonally during the winter months is a trash pump that we, use to drain wet wells at the pump stations when the pumps are off for maintenance, or when we need to supplement draining the wet well if a pump is down. And we can also use it for localized flooding, where we could pump if we're close enough back to the creek.
Is that, sorry, random, like, heavy equipment question. Is that guy strong, tough enough to take like a lot of debris in to
This
this
is
thing?
mostly water, just water.
Just water, okay.
The other ones will pick up water debris, yes.
Box, yeah. So I thought, okay, just make sure.
That was it. Any questions?
If there's no questions, then we can move on to the next item. Item number 9, staff update on the stormwater management capital plan.
I'm excited. Okay, so these guys have been talking for a long time, and I've got 19 minutes. So I'm gonna go fast. I'm gonna hit some of the highlights. Rajiv Hada is on this call as well. I think he's in also Holly Boyd. So Holly Boyd is my assistant director under engineering services. Rajiv Hada is in my team. Vicky also not on this call. She's at a training today. She's at a training for more GSI infrastructure, so she can get familiarized with some of the requirements, what other agencies are doing. But you will see both Rajiv and Vicky in future presentations as well. This time I'm covering them all. First slide, thank you. Is there a way you can zoom into this one? You get a little bigger maybe? So I wanted to focus on if you guys have time, take a look at this. What we started to create is a map that shows all the projects, the big projects. There's some projects that Oscar and Mike's team have built. They're not shown here. The ones that we went over earlier today, and that's just a small fraction of the ones that they've built. These projects highlight, first of all, the first, 7 projects that were built with a 2006 ballot measure. Remember the debt services that we talked about? So that built 7 projects, A through G. The last project, as Michelle mentioned previously, was Matadero Creek Pump Station, project number E in this list. That one was one of the biggest ones. Like at the end, we completed that project, I want to say in 2018, beginning of 2019, even though the new ballot measure had already taken place, was approved in 2017, we went into 2 more years past to finish that one pump station. And there was a field trip on the pump station.
A single pump, right?
No, It's 300 and it can pump up to 375 CFS. We've got 3 main pumps that are alternating, each one's trigger, and then we have small low.
That's your redundancy.
For redundancy, exactly. And it's similar to the ones similar in size to the ones that Mike had shared on his slides regarding the pump stations, well, similar in size. That was the San Francisco Creek Pump Station, which is near East Bay Shore, near a school in that area by the New Creek widening section. Matadero is on the other side of the city. Matadero Creek Pump Station, similar also by Colorado, Loma Verde. You'll see it on this slide. So what next year, thank you. What I wanted to highlight on this slide is the projects, the line work shown in green. Those are the ones that are being completed. The projects that we have recently completed, you'll see in here almost in teal color. So Loma Verde capacity upgrades was the first project that Vicky and my team was overseen. That project was also completed in 2019. That project replaced, I want to say about 1,500 linear feet of pipe, upsizing the capacity. We needed the Matadero Creek Pump Station to be in place before we can build projects upstream. Yeah. We have to have a bigger pump to put more water through. So Loma Verde was the first project. She also recently completed 2 smaller projects kind of shown in here, East Meadow Circle, East Meadow Drive. Those projects I'll touch back later in a couple slides. You'll see more photos of those. But what I wanted to emphasize is that one was done in 2022. So those projects were completed. We had time in between, so going back to the budget, we have time in between while we collect CIP money. We also do the rehab replacement projects separate. So what you don't see also here is, I want to say we have about 50 sites throughout the city that we've either replaced a reinforced corrugated metal pipe that has corroded, or we've lined pipes that have root intrusion, so they're broken, cracked. In order to prevent some of the leaks, we lined them internally, or we might replace them. They were built in the 20s, 30s. They were only 10-inch. They don't have the capacity to handle a 10-year storm event. Where feasible, we upsize them into 12. So we've been doing projects throughout, but we're only talking about the 13 that are capital improvement projects. So on this slide, you'll notice the different projects throughout the city where we are. The main storm event that we had, or the big storm event that we had in New Year's Eve 2022, that we were all at midnight calling and on call working on these projects. Based on the community's feedback, and as we discussed, Ron, you'll remember we had this conversation last year. We talked about moving Hamilton Center Avenue projects ahead of other projects in order to address potential risks in the next couple of years. So right now we're looking at design of Hamilton. A lot of these projects are done in-house. Our pipeline replacements are done in-house. A lot of the information needs to be gathered working with our streets group, who does street resurfacing projects, working with our utility groups, who also may have utility improvements, sewer, water, gas, wastewater, fiber, one of those. We're also trying to make sure as we upsize our lines, we may have to relocate some of our laterals. Catch basins, inlets, lines that go from a catch basin to a manhole to the main line need to be upsized, relocated, raised lower. And we may also have to relocate under either below or above water laterals, gas lines, electrical lines to serve the residents, the homes. So there's a whole mechanism that takes place when we're working on those projects. So a lot of that work is done in-house 1 year, and then the next year we try to implement it.
Land use change is going on that impacts, I mean, if
it's not land use, we're not changing the use land, but rather, for example, we might have a sanitary sewer lateral that was installed in the 50s, and our pipe that existing
in an area where they take down a little house with half a yard and replace it with wall-to-wall concrete.
Yeah, but that wouldn't affect the stuff that I'm working on, or stuff that our group is working on. But rather we're talking about in the street, exactly. So laterals, lines that go from your clean out, your private clean out to the main line, the sewer line in the street, we may have to lower that because our 21, 24-inch pipes now are 36, 48-inch pipes. So we're replacing some of the laterals. So some of the money here also gets spent on improvements that are required because we're upsizing the capacity of some of the system. So Rajiv, who's on this call, he's got three projects, but we're tackling them together. We've been a little bit hung up on these, but I'll go back later on further details. Those are shown in purple on the slide. West Bay Shore capacity upgrades, pump stations, and those are going to be basically located at the foot of the new Ped Bike Bridge project. Next slide. So I wanted to kind of give a recap. So this is East Meadow Drive. This is the project that I just mentioned earlier, Ricky had completed. This project is complete. This was done in June of this year. You can see for the purposes of how long it took from November 2023, and it was completed in June. The project is estimated to cost $400,000. The bid results came in, the lowest was $537,000. So you can see how, for example, on Kyle's budget, sometimes we've got extra money, but we've only spent this much, and some of the money comes out of, well, here's actually the lowest bids, and this is what we're getting. Mm-hmm. This kind of summarizes the type of work that was performed. Modified to vaults. As we upsize our connections, our manholes are not big enough. Right. So we have to build in and actually convert manholes into vaults to deal with the capacity. East Meadow Circle. So as we talked about GSI, green stormwater infrastructure, or you've seen it here as green municipal infrastructure. These are measures that we take into effect. So the photo in the middle shows that we try to implement measures that are natural, that will take in the first flush. Any small rain amount during the beginning of the year that might have any grease, oil, cigarette butts, anything that gets tossed into the gutter that maybe doesn't get picked up by the street sweeper before it goes into the oil, grease in particular, before it goes into our inlets, we would try to capture it here. Where feasible, my group looks into implementing some of the GSI. It's kind of one of the small buckets in capital, but it's another GSI. So some of the GSI that we were asking for, the other projects that Brad spoke about, this one also covered for this project as well. And you can see here, for example, this one was $96,000 for the GSI. The work involved with the actual CIP was $440,000. We estimated, so it was close to our estimate. Next slide. The storm drain rehab. So as I mentioned previously, we also, in the past, we had looked at trying to do CIP projects and rehab projects separately. We're trying something different where we try to do a rehab work along with CIP work at the same time. Mm-hmm. So on her project, for example, right, where we try to move our construction crews from one end to the other, we fixed, 6-7 locations throughout the city, places that we could actually replace lines in place, upsize them if necessary, and also deal with some of the impacts as a result of the flooding event that occurred.
And the logic behind this, I assume, is trench is already open.
No, the logic behind it is we have a contract, the same material, same equipment is needed. Mm-hmm. The contractor is familiar with doing our pipeline input replacement. Let's just add where feasible. Let's just try to incorporate with a primary focus. Like, for example, last winter was predicted to be a strong El Nino. Right. And we had the area near Louisa Court and Newell Place that were flooded. So one of the measures that we implemented this year, we try to, ahead of the CIP, we try to install flap gates at the main line so the water wouldn't back up into the private residence. Mm-hmm. So we had a few little projects that we did throughout the city along with the CIP projects.
It's like this rehabilitation and replacement, these are in the base program budget, right? Or no?
They're in the capital portion of it, and they're a part of the 13 projects.
So it's still in the 13.
The rehab.
Yes.
The rehab is part of the capital base, but it's a separate piece of the pie.
But it's still under the 13 projects.
No.
So this project right here on the screen is not part of the 13 high priority identified capital projects for this ballot measure. This is this capital project is to kind of address ongoing rehab and replacement needs. Right. This project does not sunset.
No, so I guess my question is which budget is going to pay for this?
Do you want
is it part base? The base,
The
that
base.
was my question.
Yeah, the base, but it's the rehab base.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Next slide. So then, as I mentioned, the other project, this is the one that Rajiv's been working on. We had a little bit of, this has been taking us a long time to get here. We are, and this is the two small pump stations that Mike mentioned. We are proposing to install two small pump stations at both sides of the new Ped Bike Bridge project. Both of the pump stations will be located within private property. They're significantly small pump stations in comparison to San Francisco Creek or Matadero. The wet well itself is probably 14 by 15 by 20 feet deep, and their capacity is 25 cubic feet per second. For comparison, Matadero is 375 cubic feet per second, so this is a relatively small pump station. What we've been hung up a little bit on this project is, one, we had to secure easements from a private property owner. So that took a long time because there was no incentive for the private property owner to give us easements. The reason why we wanted to implement or install these features within the private property is, as Mike alluded to earlier, a lot of times we're doing this work at midnight. A lot of times we've got to clean equipment. That photos he shows is during the daytime, but a lot of times during emergencies, power's outage, and during a rain event, and it's at night. For staff safety, we put vaults, we try to implement them, placing them outside of the roadway. Let's not put them in the public right away if possible. So we're building these two small pump stations in private property. So the easements took us some time. We completed the design of the project earlier in the year, so that's been done. Maybe next slide. So this is the other one. I think this is the one on West Bay Shore. Let me see if I have one more slide that shows. Yeah, one more slide. Thank you. So this is unusual for us. It doesn't happen this often. Oh yeah, this is the flood that would normally occur in East Bay Shore. But what the unusual part that you see here is we completed the project. The designs were done. We advertised the project. We had 27 days of advertising, which is typical. Like that's normal for advertising a project. We had a non-mandatory meeting with any crews that were available, any construction company that was eager to do this project. 3 firms only showed up, which is fine. It was not required for them to show up, but we were available. And within the period of that advertisement, at the end of the period of advertisement, there were no bids were received. So there was no interest on this project. We estimate about $7.5–8 million engineer's estimate in construction. It's a big enough project, but it's not large enough in comparison to what San Jose is doing or what Valley Water is doing when they're dealing with $60 million pump stations. We're dealing with tiny, small pump stations. So there was no bids were received. That's for the first phase, the first time we solicited for bids. We modified also the project a little bit in the sense that, for example, what East and West Bay Shore right now, they are constrained based on access. We can only work from 9 till 4 because those are main frontage roads, and we want to make sure the kids get to school on time and safely, and we don't want to close down traffic, especially for traffic. So we're trying to limit to 9 to 4. So we asked for an exception on the project. We re-advertised this project, increasing the work hours from 8 to 5, clarifying you can still work within private property past 4 p.m. or before 9 a.m., but we're going to work with you on as far as extending it beyond that in the roadway. And after, again, another 28 days of advertising, another non-mandatory meeting, we got 1 bid.
Wow.
So, and the bid came in 50% above our engineer's estimate. So one of the things that we're going to look into is we're re-advertising the project for the 3rd time. We don't do this. We typically don't have to deal with this many times. And this is probably one of the reasons with this delay. So we're trying to advertise this project. I think it says November 5th when I prepared the slides, and we were hoping to do November 5th. Actually, it's probably going to be next week. Again, for a period of time. What we're going to try to do is alter the way we advertise the project, solicit bids. Maybe we advertise for the 2 pump stations on its own separately, and then we deal with the pipeline capacity upgrades as a separate project at a later date. So we're hoping that maybe would reduce the cost, so we're not spending as much maybe up front. Maybe we stagger when we do the pipeline upgrades. We can build the pump station separately. That also, again, fiber, power, all the infrastructure, construction, all that gets built once. Again, our easements have a lifetime. The easements is a temporary construction easement, so the clock is ticking on those as well. We want to keep this project moving forward on both sides of the freeway, and maybe the pipeline replacement we'll do at a later date. So
What combining two big upgrades, would that help?
that's what the intent to do here was.
Okay.
We could have done these projects separately. We could have advertised each side of the freeway, East Bay Shore and West Bay Shore separately. But we thought if we combine everything in as one package, it might be more appealing to a contractor.
So now you're going the other extreme and trying to.
Now we're separating the pump components out and the pipeline upgrades separate. Because maybe we can advertise the pipeline as part of another one of the CIPs, maybe as a Hamilton project at a later date.
The other thing that's happened is inflation, took off, and so the contractor had to assume halfway through the project his costs are gonna go way up.
Yeah, nope, and that's the other part that's hurting us too. So, I mean, I think one of the pieces I wanted to identify, because we talked about, we have 15 years, 13 projects, we've completed 3. We were trying to complete 3 more, but those 3 more are hung up from various reasons, and now we're getting hung up because we're not getting any bids. And we got 1 bid that is 50% above the asking, which I want to make sure for the interest of not only
Protect himself, I mean, that's part of what we face.
part of it, but I also want to make sure that for the purposes of benefiting for the residents' benefits and also for your committee, I want to make sure that we've tried different approaches so that at the end, if it is 50% over the asking, well, I've tried to solicit bids as different as we possibly could, and maybe this is why some projects are going to cost us more in the long run.
I think it's also important to note that we have very specific solicitation rules to make sure that it's, competitive and fair. And so the way in which we solicit is regulated, and it's not like we can just put any type of solicitation out. We have to follow specific municipal guidelines on how to do that.
It's better Craigslist.
No.
Next slide. So the next project, and this is the first time I think everybody here, I think Ron hasn't heard this one yet. A little bit, I introduced it last year, but earlier in the year, Hamilton Avenue. So in light of the flooding event that occurred, a lot of the residents off of Hamilton, Alistair, Dana, you saw Mike, his group added an extra inlet to protect them for the last winter season. We are moving Hamilton, which is one of the 13 projects ahead of others, to try to pick up some of these flows in advance for next storm's events. What we're doing in this project also is we have to build from a hydraulic perspective, we've got to build downstream and make our way upstream. So one of the next projects will be Center. Center is upstream of Hamilton, so we cannot build Center without upsizing Hamilton. Otherwise, water will come out of the pipes and flood the streets. What we're doing on Hamilton is currently the pipes. In some locations, we've got 12-inch, 15-inch, 18-inch pipes built in the 50s. We're upsizing to 48 for as much as possible. We've got segments downstream as we get closer to roads that are maybe right now are 24-inch pipes. Where feasible, I'm looking to keep the 24s for redundancy since we're designed for the 10-year storm, but I'm hoping to add more capacity. If the 24-inch pipes are reasonable, because we've had a lot of material that lasts a long time, especially concrete. If we can keep the 24, I want to put a parallel line, a 36-inch, to add for capacity. So in that sense, we're maybe cost savings in the sense that we are putting in a 36-inch pipe, but from a hydraulic perspective, we actually have more capacity from a 24 that's adjacent to it.
You used to try to design with overflow.
Yeah.
So that if your design was 10-year, and then if you hit a 20, that something overflowed somewhere.
Yeah.
So
we do have some of that. So for example, East Meadow Drive, and I didn't get into the details on it. On East Meadow Circle, the project that we just completed, it runs out to Barron Creek. But when floods in the water level in the creek gets super high and the flap gate can open because of the pressure behind in the creek, if the flap gate cannot open, the water overflows into Adobe Creek. So it sort of backs up and drains. So what we did with East Meadow Circle is sort of created a bypass. So we have water potentially could flow in 2 different directions. It really depends on the storm event. So if we do some of that potentially. One of the pieces is not shown here, and I also wanted to highlight is maybe on Alistair. So you know where Alistair's is, that black one to the, yeah, that was the short segment, that one, Alistair. So there is an existing pipe in this vicinity. It's a 12-inch pipe. Oscar and Mike recently installed a catch basin at the end of that pipe to pick up any nuisance flow that comes from Dana. One of the things I'm proposing on this project is we are going to do a CIP project for Hamilton upgrade, but we're also going to tap into the rehab money and increase the capacity on Alistair. I don't know if you saw some of the photos or some of the videos in the past when Alistair Duveneck was flooded during the New Year's Eve storm event. We're hoping to replace that existing 12-inch pipe, 36, maybe 48. I think we are going to be able to just so have more capacity within our pipe to take in more flows. So we're hoping to replace existing line as a rehab project component within a CIP project.
Oh, can you, what's the next size up?
We can't, because from a hydraulic perspective, we can only go as high as the biggest pipe it's connected to it. So the next one would probably be a 56, but we cannot do a 56 because the CIP allows me for 48. I cannot go higher. And because of the 48 and all the laterals, water, gas, sewer, wastewater, fiber that connects every single home, will probably have to be changed, upsized, relocated, raised in order to accommodate for all of these features.
I just want to be mindful of time, so I really appreciate, we've tried to pack a lot into this meeting, but we are 5 minutes over, so I apologize for that. We do try and not be over time, but also we have 3 committee members, a lot of questions, so I just wanted to, I think that's your last slide.
Yep, that's my last slide. And just, there's a web page going to be, it's currently underway. So I'm working on updating a web page. Most of our CIP projects have a web page available.
Great, so should we move on? So
That's the last item.
the last item is additional committee questions, comments, announcements, future meetings, and agendas. Have anything on them?
So future meetings, I'll probably end up doing a doodle poll. We'll let you have the holidays and we'll try and meet up. And we also have to time it with budget. So once we get together, understand our schedule and calendars, we'll try and get a calendar item for you. Typically it's 2 meetings reviewed in this. Do I remember correctly?
We have to meet with you at minimum in April to get approval and sign off on the proposed budget. If there's other non-budget items that need to be discussed, that can happen between now and April, but for sure there will be a meeting in April.
So if there's items that you want to discuss, email them to me, or you can tell me for the meeting. If there's other things that you want interested in. Normally we have just for the new committee members, usually a budget review and then a capital review. And then if there's something related to compliance, we also give an update on what's going on with compliance as well.
Do you combine those in one meeting?
Typically, yes. Okay. We try and do them all just to keep you informed. And then that way the budget is not just the only thing you're looking at.
So have we decided when the next meeting is?
It'll be sometime in April. I need to look at our calendar and figure out when, because sometimes that shifts to early May. So it's like,
I'd like to meet with you all in April if possible.
So probably end of April, usually what.
Like Karen said, she'll send out a doodle poll with some options to make sure we have maximum attendance from the committee members. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
So I don't need to rush things through, but as Karen said, we are a little over time. So now we need to address adjournment. Do I hear? I think that's the formal thing, right? So,
I move.
Second.
Okay, and are we all in agreement? Can I hear an aye or a nay?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Well, this meeting has been formally adjourned.
And thank you, sorry, we went over a little information.
Yeah, this was
Get back to speed on what we're doing.
So,
Yes.
we were going from PE 22,000 to,
You know
oh,
what?
no, sorry, reverse. P 12011.